everybody, Emilio Riccio here at Intrust Properties, and thank you for joining us again on our next episode. Today, we're going to talk about TRID. It's the Truth in Lending Act, RESPA, Integrated Disclosure Act that just came into effect back in October 2015. A lot of you are asking, what is it? What does it do? And how does it affect you when buying and selling a home? Well, let's talk about what it is. What it is basically an integration of the Truth in Lending Act and the RESPA, which stands for Real Estate Settlement Disclosure Act, and puts them together. And the government, Congress, requested that two new forms be created so that to help simplify the process and protect the consumer. How does it protect the consumer? Well, what it does is it creates new timeline requirements when buying or selling your home. More so, the timeline requirements are more so on the buyer side, and we'll get to that right now. This is how it affects your transaction when you're selling your home. Buyer has to formally apply for their loan, which is now called the loan estimate. Once they go to the loan officer of their choice and they apply for that loan estimate, the loan officer has about 3 days, no more than 3 days, to give that loan estimate to that buyer for review. And then once you get through the whole underwriting process, ordering the appraisal, it actually, by the time you really figure it, instead of getting the appraisal ordered immediately after the home inspection, it could take up to 3 weeks from the acceptance of your offer to actually physically get that appraisal appointment set and scheduled into your home. So now we're 3 weeks in. Kind of scary. The other thing too, that once the final loan estimate, you go through the whole mortgage process, basically you get what is called the final loan estimate and the preliminary closing disclosure. What that does is it generates the final cost of the buyer's closing costs, down payment, proration of taxes, so on and so forth, and make sure that there's no major variances in there from the original loan estimate or application to the actual clear to close. Then the buyer will actually have about 10 days to review, deem that they received it, review the actual disclosures, and decide whether or not they want to move forward with the transaction. That's right. I said 10 days after to decide whether they want to move forward with the transaction. What is that? How does that protect the seller to ensure that they've got a viable buyer on the other end? Kind of scary. We'll talk about that in a second, but more importantly, typically, if you bought or sold a home in the past, there is always a closing date on or before, and sometimes you get a delay because underwriting was behind it and so on and so forth. Well, now TRID automatically excuses that final target closing date and allows it to flow, which is another scary part of the TRID. And the more I talk about this, the more I think of the acronym TRID. It's starting to become the reasons I drink, because it can be a stressful part of it put a lot more stress on the transaction, create a lot more uncertainty. And how do we figure this all out? Well, it's very important now that when you're interviewing your agent, whether you're buying your home or selling your home, part of your interviewing process is how well do you know the TRID process? How are you going to make sure that we close on time when we accept an offer? Because it's very important that when you sell your home, a lot of you may implement hiring movers or calling your friends to schedule a move out. When you buy your next home, you got to know when you're going to close on and it's contingent upon closing on your home. And you need to know when you're closing on your home so you can close on your next home. So an agent like ourselves, a professional team like ourselves, will be able to line it all up, make sure the timelines are met, put systems in place to button up the transaction, to keep the buyer on track, to make sure that we have a viable buyer. Because honestly, a buyer always wants to close. That's the truth. It's not an excuse for buyers to go out there and just, fire off offers, and if it doesn't close, so what? They've got money invested in this also. So it's really important that when you are thinking of selling or buying your home, make sure you have an agent that knows the process, understands it, knows how to create the timelines so that everything's followed. Because typically today, you can, no matter how well your credit is, you can expect to close no sooner than 45 days, unless it's cash, up to 60 days or longer. And if you follow me on our blog at intrustproperties.wordpress.com, I promise we're still implementing a more simplified domain name for that. But if you follow us on our blog, we will be scheduling a on-the-phone interview with a buyer, not necessarily work directly with us, but a very close dear friends of ours that happened to fallen into a relationship with another agent. And we're going to talk about how it affected them. We're going to go through the whole timeline, how it affected them when they found their home, made an offer, went through the loan process, negotiation process as well, because I believe that there was repairs involved, and the overall satisfaction of the process and what they think that could have been done better to make it go faster. But you see, buyers, not only would a seller want to sell so that they can move, a buyer wants to close so they can move into their next home. So that's TRID in a nutshell. If you have any questions, just comment or share, comment back to us or private message us through our Facebook page, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. But that's everything that I have to say about TRID. It's not the greatest thing in the world. A lot of loan officers don't appreciate it very much, but ultimately we have to deal with it, and you need an agent that knows how to deal with it. So give us a call, and if you're thinking of buying or selling a home, we'll be happy to sit down with you and go in more depth with it. This is Emilio Riccio with Intrust Properties. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you soon, and make it a great day.